Hey, you guys, thank you so much for hopping on my YouTube channel and joining us today. Today's guest that I have here is Tricia. Thanks so much for joining us,
Hey.
Tricia. Today's topic, again, that we're going to talk about is part two, and talking about trauma healing and how to deal with trauma. In this talk that we're going to talk about, I'm going to ask Tricia a lot of questions and just asking her, like, how did she heal from past trauma? How did she deal with it? What are some coping mechanisms? What are some tips and tools that she can share with you guys today to talk about, that can help a lot of people out there that is dealing with traumas, right? And it can, again, trauma can deal with anything from being like sexually abused, physically abusive from a childhood, when you were a child. Trauma, there are a lot of people that are dealing with relationship traumas, with somebody smacking them around, like physical abuse or verbal abuse, for sure, right? Mental abuse. There's just so many things that people go through their childhood that then affects them when they're adults, right? And it's
Yes.
those traumatizing issues that really affect them in their relationships, in their lives, in raising their kids, and just so many different areas in their life. So again, Tricia, thank you so much for joining us. I
Thanks
really
for having me, Tracy.
appreciate it. So first off, I just want to talk about, like, what's your story? What's your story? What's your background when it comes to you dealing with, past trauma?
Sure. So, I think a lot of my trauma stems from my childhood and a lot of the things that I went through growing up, a lot of the things that I saw. Um, for me personally, I grew up in a very chaotic home. I call it chaotic because there was constantly a lot of anxiety. There was a lot of abuse, physically, emotionally, mentally. Physically, not on me, but physically, I saw my mom get pretty beat up over the years. As young parents, I don't think that they really understood what it was to be a parent or how to create a safe environment. So I saw a lot. And I think over the years, what happens when you see that is you and your own self become anxious, you become insecure, you have a lot of abandonment and codependency issues as you grow because you're constantly chasing love from your parents. When they're not engaged in you and they're only engaged in themselves and all of the trauma that they're dealing with and the fighting and the whatever you want to call it, you're constantly chasing love from them. And I think that that had a lot to do with the relationships that I started to cultivate over the years. I was always a people pleaser. I always wanted to, like, buy people in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but I constantly wanted to chase these relationships that I know weren't good for me, but I knew that I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to be accepted and validated. And that went through all of my childhood all the way up to now, and I'm 33 years old and I'm still doing that. um so yeah, I think I went through this for I just moved out after 33 years of living with my family. One of the things that really I think also affected me was the instability. I would go from my mom's home. Cops would come, they would separate. I would go live at my grandma's house for 3 months. Then my dad would come back and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to change, I'm going to be a good guy. We would go back home. Then 2 3 weeks later, three or even up to 2 months later, whatever it was, I'd be going to my aunt's house or I'd be going somewhere else. So I was constantly being shifted around. And that in itself creates instability in your mind and in your environment too, right? You don't ever feel safe. So that's kind of my story and where I'm at and how I'm dealing with it right now. I'll share that with you as well. But that's where my trauma came from.
For sure. And like, that's the same thing with me, you guys. You guys heard of my story. Yesterday I talked a lot about my past childhood trauma, on things that I experienced through my life, and as a child, and where it kind of brought me mid in my teenage years. So with all that trauma that you had, like being at home, and when you were younger,
Mhm.
where were you mentally, let's say when you were a teenager? Where do you think that, because of all that trauma, did you see that start to compound in your teenage years, or did you just start seeing, the trauma really affect you when you were, let's say, within your 20s or 30s?
I think I was most challenged during my childhood years, and mainly in my teenage years. When I was going into high school, I was really rebellious. Number one, I did not care about school. One of the most traumatic things in my life happened when I was in high school, which was that I got taken away from my home and I got put into I got put into a foster care system, and that completely depleted me. That actually pretty much, it was downhill from there. But I noticed that again, it was constantly trying to fit in or like be a part of something, because I didn't know anything about stability, or even having any sort of like safety around me. I was constantly running away from my problems. I couldn't focus in school. School at that point was completely like shifted. I just completely erased that part of my life completely.
Mhm.
um yeah, it was a really hard time. I noticed that there was a lot of habits. Like I said, it was constantly trying to please people. I was really trying to like buy people. I'd be like, oh yeah, I can get you this bus pass. Like, let me get it for you, or let me do this for you. Let me get you lunch. Let me do this. Like, it was really weird because I'm like, what? Like, for what? I didn't even have money at that time, and I was trying to buy people things, like, because I wanted to be accepted. So, yeah, I would say the teenage years is really where I started to see these I want to call them red flags,
Mhm.
for
So
sure.
So do you think that affected, let's say your life as you got older, when it came to your friends around you, your relationship house, like
Hmm.
from all that past trauma? Because I know that a lot of people struggle mentally and emotionally when they have their past hood traumas, and
Hmm.
like they try to block it out, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Confront it, and then it's just like it's like a snowball effect. Like every time they try to block it out, something happens, they lash out, like they get really pissed off or really sad or really angry, and then they find something else to replace it. So I know you said that how you would try to like buy your friends like friendships and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and to have that surrounding and support or whatever. So do you see that happening like now in your adult life? Like has that
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. First of all, I think the trauma completely depleted my sense of even having a relationship. I didn't even think I was ever going to have a relationship. First of all, in my mind, I always thought that relationships equaled cheating, equaled abuse, equaled unhappiness. So I had a very bad ideal of what relationships were. I didn't even want it. I completely blocked that part out of my life. And I said the only relationships that I would fill that void with were my friendships. So I started to become codependent on my friendships. So I get really attached to somebody. Um, if somebody became my friend, like I would want to chill with them all the time. I would try to like run away from home and go and like be with them 95% of the time, because I did not want to face the truth of what was going on at home. And also I didn't want to give myself to anybody. So I was like constantly just becoming codependent on other people to help me fill the void of what I was missing in my life with my family, and I think also in love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what would you say, what would you say are some of like like your realizations on that now? Like how did you are you finally coming to par to realize that a lot of the things that affect your life now has to do with your past trauma?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
if you started to really, I know there's people out there that they're listening and they're just like, yeah, that happened, I'm over it. Like was there ever a point where you're just like, man, that stuff happened to me, that's not affecting me now? Did you ever like try to say that it had nothing to do with my past,
Mhm.
like get into this moment where you're just like not blaming nothing in your past, just blaming stuff on other people? Like did you ever, like, how like there's just some people that just be like, man, it's not me, like I don't know why this keeps happening to me, like they keep blaming the universe or other people around them for circumstances that are happening to them. Like, did you have that point where you're just blaming the world, and then, or did you just have awakening and said, okay, great, you know what, it's not the world, it's me, and it's something that I need to work on with inside of me to fix my circumstances outside of me?
Yeah, you know what? It actually motivated me, to be quite honest with you. It motivated me because I didn't want to be defined by my past. I did not want to be a product of your environment, or what do they say, that you become a product of your environment. So for me, what I had was the awakening. I think it happened in my early 20s when I started to really see, one, it's self-education, right? Like, I mean, we don't know a lot of the things that we know now. We didn't have access to a lot of the things that we did when we were growing up. So the unknown of what we went through, and being able to self-educate your, like, to know exactly, you know, these are the reasons why I have these insecurities about myself. These are the reasons why I'm codependent on myself. And I educated myself to the point where I understood everything from, like we were talking about earlier, the epigenetics. How does that affect you? You know, like, I really wanted to figure out, how can I better myself and not be, again, a product of my environment. And I took the steps that I needed to take to strengthen my mind, to strengthen my inner self. And it is definitely a journey. It's not something that happens and, you read a couple of books, or you watch a couple of videos, or you do meditations and it's all fixed. This is something that has been embedded into us from childhood. So you're trying to break free of things that you've seen, you've grown up seeing or hearing, and it's kind of conditioned in your mind. So the only way to really reverse the conditioning of your mind is to do something new, to introduce it to something new. So I started to do things like, recordings of myself and all the goals and all of the things that I wanted to change about myself. And I would listen to that constantly throughout the day. I started to really study the mind. I started studying the mind. I started to understand, like, how can I, again, reverse what I went through? How can I really take the steps to make the change within myself, so I don't have this happening to my kids if I ever have it, right? Where do you take the stance and the responsibility to break that generational curse, or to break um, that pattern that I think our parents even brought into our lives without even knowing? And we can't blame our parents. I used to blame my parents a lot, because I was like, oh, why can't I have the normal life? Like, why can't I go to Disneyland with my dad? I see all my friends at school saying they went to Disneyland and they did all these things. How come I can't have the same thing? Why am I going through all this shit and this abuse?
Mhm.
And once I started to look into the epigenetics, and
Yeah, if you could just talk a little bit more about that epigenetics, like
yeah,
how you learned and what are some tips you can give to other people out there about that? Because I think
for
that.
sure. For sure. Epigenetics really stems from your the DNA. It goes further past what's on the surface. It's actually internal and what's in your DNA. So let's say, for example, your mother's mother, so your grandmother, she grew up seeing abuse. She grew up seeing, or she was depressed, or she was angry throughout your pregnancy, or her pregnancy with your mom. And your mom, actually, while she's angry and she's pregnant with your mom is getting these things in her DNA. All these feelings and emotions are actually being streamed into her DNA without her even knowing it. And then now she's having you. And she went through abuse and trauma and whatever it may have been. And that travels into your DNA. So we don't even know that we've curated or cultivated all these emotions prior to even us being born. And it kind of is just like, it's in us, and you have to have the ability to reverse it. So epigenetics is really about the DNA of what your parents, or your let's call it your bloodline, they've gone through over the years. And it can go all the way back to your ancestors, to your great great grandmother, and all of the things that she's went through, and it goes in your DNA, right? So one of the things, like I said, that I did to reverse that was to understand the patterns of what I saw in my family. So I really had to dissect. I didn't go all the way back to like my great grandmother and my ancestors, but I looked at my grandmother and my mom, and I looked at all of the habits that my grandmother had, or all the things that I would ask her questions. Like, this is really an opportunity as well, for you to know about your family. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I got to really sit with my grandmother and ask her some core questions that I don't even think she was ready for. Like, she was just a little taken back, but I would ask her, you know what I mean? Like, what was it like when you were growing up? How was your relationship with pops? Like, what were you stressed out when you were pregnant? What are some of the things that you felt when you were going through this pregnancy? And if you know anything, I don't know, in the Guyanese descent, like they're really just like cook, clean, work, take care of the kids, take care of the household. And that's their responsibility. And I know that she would share with me, like, I was angry with your grandpa because he he wanted to have control over the finances, and that bothered me. And that created, a little bit of resistance in the relationship, because she felt like I just have to do this and he runs all that and he doesn't listen to me and what I say, and I didn't have a voice in our relationship. It was kind of like he took care of everything. As great as he was, an amazing man, but the man wanted to run things when it came to the money, and she felt like she had no voice. And he was always on road, or he was drinking, or so there was anger, right? There was resentment and anger. And my grandma always says this thing. She always says to me, "I don't really believe in love." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, you had one of the most amazing relationships that I've ever seen in my life. How could you say that you don't really know what love is?" Like things like that. So, my point is that you really have to go deep. You have to go deep to understand what it is or what it was that caused you to have the similar or the same type of emotions or struggles that they went through, right? And again, the way to reverse it is to take a look at the patterns of your life, um, and really look at, is this what I want one for my life? Is this like, do I want to continuously take this down our ancestry or our path of life? Do I really want this to be following me? And how can I make the change? And like I said, the subconscious mind is about habitual, repetitive things that you do, patterns, right? They're habits and patterns that we do on a daily basis. So if you've been saying to yourself, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not good enough for love, I came from a shitty, upbringing, it was so abusive, I can't ever see myself be with anybody. These were the thoughts that I had in my mind. But then I started to record myself, and I said in the recording, I love myself. I trust myself to be in a relationship to love that person unconditionally. I trust myself to look at things that may be going wrong in my relationship and talk it out, not fight about it. You know what I mean? And I started to say things like, I accept myself. I love myself. I whatever my goals were, I would listen to them every single day, twice a day. And you may not see it on the surface, but you'll start to see a little changes in the way that things happen around you. It's not even just within you. You start to see things like, I remember, one of the goals that I wanted to manifest in 2018 was a job, where I can travel the world, and I wanted to make a certain amount of money, and I would constantly write it. And it's not even just about the inner work here or listening to things. It's about three things, I think. It's about the mind and the repetitive things that you say with your mind, and also what you put out onto paper. So I would write out my goals every day, 3 times a day, in the morning, I think in the afternoon, and also in the night before I went to sleep. I know it's hard, but the way that conditioned my mind was that I started to see things happen around me. Business would come in, and I didn't even do anything. Somebody would have sent me a message and said, "Hey, I'm interested in your services and this and that." I applied for a job after 2 years of not being in corporate to Booking.com. My last job, I said to myself, I'm never going back to work. I would never go back and work corporate. But I saw this job opening for Booking.com, and I was like, "Well, they send you to Amsterdam every year? Like, what the hell? I'm applying for that." And I applied for it, and I got that job. And it was my job was actually to fly all over the world. I went to Europe. I went to all throughout Canada. I did so many wonderful things because I manifested that. So I don't know if that all makes sense, but it's really about you changing the way that you think and taking control of your thoughts. I think that's, like, if I can sum up everything that I just said, it's taking control of your thoughts, and really asking yourself, what do you want? Like, what do you want for your life? It's not what's defined of your past. You are not defined of your past In fact, you never even asked to be there, right? So how can you be defined for it? Like by it, I should say. How can you be defined by something that you never really asked for? You didn't
So
ask to be born. So you have to be able to like reverse everything that you've seen, if that makes sense.
for sure. So what advice would you give people that are worrying about the future? That they're worrying that with all this trauma, with all that I've been through, like let's say even if there's people that's gone through shit right now, right? A traumatizing situation right now. Whether they lost somebody, that passed away, or whether, they went through a really harsh breakup or a divorce or whatever the case may be, like, and they're worried about like the future. They're worried about, oh man, like I don't know if I'm going to be able to get another person like that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, treat another person like this, or have that lifestyle, or have that money, or have this, or whatever the case may be, because they dealt with so much traumatizing situations from their past. What advice would you be able to give them to like not worry about the future, instead of like worrying about the past? There's some people that worry about the future and what's to come, and they don't know if they can have it. Like, what would you tell them?
First, I would say embrace the uncertainty because we live in a life, I think we live life with the unknown every single day. You wake up the next day without knowing what's going to happen in your day. So that's the first thing. Don't like my first, I think my first real realization of what it takes to be stronger than what you feel is when I decided to take control of my life. So, you know, we we have no guarantee as to what our results will be ever. We have no. We can design. We can write all of the designs. Or let me repeat what I'm trying to say here. We can try our hardest to design the life that we want, but tomorrow you can walk across the street and you can get licked by a car, and everything that you just wrote down and tried to design is gone. So letting go of expecting that things are going to constantly be this way. Embrace the uncertainty, embrace the fear of the unknown, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's first. The second thing is to really look inside, and I keep saying that because I think a lot of people think like we have Instagram posts all day that tell us to like the way that life is seen now is that everybody's on this like I got to be good, I got to do this, I have to do this to be seen into the world like that. It's not about the outer world anymore. It's about you as an individual and what you want to create for your inner self, and also for what you want on the outer, because the inner is a complete reflection of what you have on the outer.
Mhm.
So if you're not healthy in your mind, if you are constantly stressed, if you are constantly putting yourself down, or if you're in a constant state of worry, and it's all about frequency and energy. I don't know if people really look into that, but frequency of energy, it has so much to do with what's on the outside. So I'll give you an example. I recently went through a breakup with somebody that I thought would never leave my side. It was so perfect. I thought everything is great. The next day, this person blocks me, and I haven't heard from them in 2 months. And every day I was down. I was down, and I was in this mood of like, woe is me. I can't believe this happened to me. You know, and prior to that, I woke up every day and I would meditate, I would pray, I would work out, I would write out my goals, I would listen to my affirmations, I did everything. And life was on a high. It was literally on a high. Every day I felt like I was high. I was uplifted. I productivity levels were up the charts. Like I knew exactly what I needed to do every single day and I got it done. The minute that I decided to stop doing that, the day that I decided to stop telling myself all the great things that I did, or all the things that I wanted, or you know what I mean? Like, point being is my focus it shifted, and I decided that at that point I'm gonna start being the victim, and I'm gonna start talking about how like I can't go on without him. I don't know what my life is now. I walk into my apartment, and every time I look into certain parts of my place, I think of him, and I started to be afraid of coming into my own home. Imagine that. I didn't even want to go into my own home because I was so like depleted by what happened. But on the flip side, now I'm telling myself again, I have my planner. I got my prayers in motion again. I started to meditate again. And I can tell you, if there's anything in a connection of your with your own self, and also to the higher power of whatever you believe in, whether it's Buddha, God, the universe, whatever you guys choose to believe in, once you make that connection and you take the time to meditate and sit with yourself, a lot of things will uncover itself that you're trying to fight with, if that makes sense. Like, so it's again going back to the inner work. All of that is inner work. Prayer, your faith in what you believe in, meditation is time with yourself, the goal setting and the affirmations is the conditioning of your mind, and then and also release, right? Because when you pray and when you talk to God, there's no method as to how you pray. It's what you feel, and it's
Mhm.
what you want God to hear. And it's about also releasing the pain of what you feel and giving it to him to deal with now. I when I pray, I used to have like this static way of praying. I would go to the Bible, listen to a verse. Now I talk to God.
Yeah.
I talk to God. I don't pray to God. I talk to God. And I really tell him, like, God, I need you to strengthen me right now. I need your strength. I need you to instill that courage in me again.
Mhm.
That courage, that tenacity, that strength in the mind, not just in my physical being, but I need the strength in my mind and my heart again. And I need you to help me elevate my faith, you know? And these are the things that I say. So it's not about it's again, it's the inner work, it's the healing through God, it's the conditioning of your mind through repetition. If you take 21 days and you listen to affirmations for 21 days, and you listen to your goals for 21 days, I promise you, I would in fact challenge everybody right now. We'll go back in 21 days from today's date. We'll do another video, and anybody that did this challenge, you can comment on the next video that we do in 21 days and tell me how much it's changed your life, right? Record stuff on your phone, record your goals, record what you want to tell yourself, and listen to it. Listen to it constantly. Continue to tell yourself everything great about what's going on in your life, not everything that's bad. These things are all. Here's the one thing that I want to say about any sort of temporary defeat. Look up that word temporary. It is temporary.
Mhm.
Tomorrow can be a better day. Whatever we're feeling today, yes, embrace it, be compassionate with it. Don't put yourself down about it. Um don't blame yourself. Don't be angry at yourself because you're feeling these ways. This is life. This is what the God has granted us with emotions that we don't even know we feel, but we feel it because we're humans. We have a soul, right? When you have a soul, you have the ability to feel, whether it's good or bad. You know what I'm saying? So don't ever think that you're defined or you're stuck to or attached to a feeling. Feelings are like like clouds. Thoughts are like clouds. They move. They're never. You ever see a cloud just stick there? It never sticks there. It moves all the time, right? So we have to remember that thoughts are movement, and you have control to take that cloud and say, I don't want that cloud anymore, and I want it to actually disappear. And you have the ability to do that. So that's kind of the ways. I rambled a lot, but that's how I deal with temporary defeat. I want to call it temporary defeat.
No, that's amazing because that's what a lot of people deal with when they have past traumas, right? Or they have trauma situations that they're going through, right? That's
Mhm.
physically and mentally breaking them down. So,
Yes.
next question I want to ask you is, you said you had that situation that happened with your ex, and then you had a lot of, situations that happened to you when you were younger, and
Hmm.
it sounds like there's like a little bit of an abandonment that happened to you through your life.
Yes. Hmm.
Now, would you say that you found a point in your like you're at a point in your life where you now are forgiving those people? Like,
100%. 100%.
and so if you are, how are you coping with being able to forgive? Because I know that that's a really hard thing for a lot of people out there, is like looking at that person who hurt them and saying, I forgive you,
Yeah.
or looking at them and not getting angry about what they did to them. And another question that you can answer going into that as well is like, I know there's a lot of people that ask themselves, like, I know I used to do this, and I talked about this in my part one, is I
Mhm.
used kill myself and beat myself asking myself, why me, why me, why is this happening to me, like why, why is life like this, or why, when is it going to get better? And I would just kill myself asking all these questions, as if, like, again, I'm the issue, right? So if you can, like, go into depth detail on how you handle those two things, to like share with people, maybe give some tips to people as well when you're going to detail on how you handle those things, like to help people out there to overcome those things.
Sure. Um, in my opinion, the most, I want to say that God, you have to look at it. God forgave us. We weren't even worthy of what Jesus did for us, and He forgave us all for our sins. So who are we to not be able to forgive others, right? And this is the way that I look at it. Um, Forgiveness is a part of healing. So I talked about energies before. Imagine that you have all, I hate my dad. I hate my mom for what she did to me. I hate all of my exes. Everybody that did something wrong to me, I hate, I resent them. I can't stand them. I can't do this. Think about what's going on in your body and in your heart when you feel that hate and that resentment towards somebody. I feel like my heart goes like this. I mean, your heart is supposed to be like this all the time. Your chest should be free. Your body should be flowing. God is love, and love is God, right? God is forgiveness. God is. I know. I don't know if I don't want to make this all about religion and faith and all of that, but whatever you believe in, the universe, Buddha, Allah, again, you know, each and every one of them practice the art or the emotions of forgiveness.
Mhm.
So to me, I think that in order for me to be completely in flow of what my soul is supposed to be, according to what I believe in God, I cannot stay attached to resentment. I cannot stay attached to having this hate. So, for example, my dad and I didn't have a relationship throughout my whole childhood. I very much did not like my dad. I don't want to use the word hate, but I did not like my dad. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. In my eyes, he was the worst person ever for everything that he did to me and to my family. I
Mhm.
couldn't forgive him. I couldn't even look at him in his face. And I remember that I was, as I got older, I started to feel this emptiness within me because how can you ever, like, I had a relationship with my mom, kind of, but imagine not having a male figure in your life and also that being your dad. Your dad, for me, in my opinion, has a lot to do with this, the way that other relationships with men stem. It stems from that. It's a core part of how you look at men and how you look at relationships and how men should treat you with that. So, you know, I had this thing in my heart forever that I'm never going to have a relationship with my dad. I'm never going to be um, anything to my dad, or he'll never be anything to me. And we're just not going to be a part of each other's lives. But
Mhm.
there was something I remember I was reading in the Bible and also through my studies of epigenetics. Um, and it said that the most important thing in your healing is forgiveness. So
Mhm.
I decided to, like, little bit by little bit, I started to actually try to build a relationship with my dad. And I did things like I sent him a text one day. I I started to say hi to him. I would be in the same room as him. Like there was times when I didn't even, if he was home, I wouldn't go to my house. But I started to show up, and it started to change the way that I looked at, like, relationships in general, and also the way that I looked at men. I started to look at them that they weren't that bad. You know, if you communicate with them and you talk to them and things like that. So it changed the way that I looked at a lot of my relationships. But um, going back to my point, forgiveness is a part of the healing process. And you, again, in order for you to be in flow, you have to let go. Letting go is a big part of healing. And looking at them, and it doesn't even need to, you don't ever have to see them to forgive them. You can close your eyes in prayer, or you can write it down and saying, I forgive this person. I release and I let them go, and I love them unconditionally, you
Mhm.
know? And there's something within you that's going to spark. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't happen today, it doesn't happen tomorrow, but you start to see your own self change because you're now letting go of something that you kept so attached to, this resentment and this, like, I hate them and I can't stand them and why did they do this to me and all these things. The questions become answered through forgiveness. And sometimes it's not even about what they did, sometimes it's about you. It's sometimes it's really about you. It doesn't have anything to do with um what they did. You have to also look at that person. We as individuals go through things, right? Think about all the things that you feel when you're down and the way that you act when you're down or you're not right within yourself. And you have to be compassionate with the other person. And maybe they weren't in the right state of mind. Maybe something was going on with them. And I couldn't help them out in that time. It wasn't our time. So I release and I let you go. And I give it to God and I give it back to the universe to see what my destiny is with that person. But I want them to be good in the, like, I want there to be good energy between us, like I don't want it to be that I hate you. And if I see you, it's going to be this big fight and this combustion of anger. I want it to be that, if I see you on road, hey, how are you? How's life been for you? I love you. And one of the things that I read is that you don't ever have to tell somebody that I love you with your mouth, but you can say it in your mind, I love you. When
Yeah.
somebody serves you, I love you. You know, life is about love. So being attached to these negative emotions will only be detrimental to yourself. So the first thing is letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. That'll help so many people to understand. Like you gave them great tips on how they can look into letting go, right?
Yeah.
Because I so right, like that's so key to being able to move forward is
Yes.
letting go and trusting that everything. I feel like everything happens in divine timing, right?
Correct. Yes.
I love saying this analogy that life is not happening to you, life is happening for you.
For
So
you. Yes.
whatever it is that you've been through, I've been through, whatever the case may be, or anybody out there that's watching this that you're going through, it's just there's a bigger meaning to it and why you're going through
Mm.
what you're going, even though we may not see it in the here and now why we're going through it. At the end of the day, when I started to stop putting the blame on other people, when I started to stop asking why me, why me, why me, like basically playing in the victim mode, that allowed me to really move forward as well and keep thinking that, okay, great, everything that happened to me was a learning lesson, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to this like amazing podcast with this girl, and I'll send it to you, Tricia.
Hmm.
And she was sex traffic kid, like sex trafficked
Trafficking. Yeah.
by her own parents at 4 years old. At 4 years old, they would send her to motels, and they are already embedded inside her mind and trained her that this is how you're supposed to be. Like
Hmm.
that's love. Like she's anointed, she's special to do these things. And I'm just like, I'm listening to this and I'm like, holy shit.
Wow. Hmm.
This shit is going on to this day. You know what I'm trying to say? There's so many kids, innocent kids, getting like sex trafficked from their own family members, from the people they love. So I'm just like hearing your story. I'm just like, sometimes it could be like the people that we love the most. And people out there that's hearing my part number one, it's the people that we love the most that sometimes teach us the biggest lessons, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and when I came to like realize that, like it's the ones we love the most that, like, even if a boyfriend, like what you went through, right? What I went through, we give them so much love, so much of ourselves, that I think in a way sometimes we lose ourselves with all
Yeah.
that leading outwards.
So the one thing that I want to say to that point is that when I look at things, when I do things, I always like to be intentional about what I do. That being that I don't just do it to do it. I try to have intentions with everything that I do. And so I always say two things. One, whatever that person's intentions were, whether it was to take from me, whether it was to use me, whether it was I was a temporary solution or whatever the situation may be, there's two things that I look at: my intentions, and I look at the fact that my God sees all, and my intentions are always pure. And so I can sleep really well at night knowing that whatever I did for that person, it was out of the goodness of my heart. And whatever their intentions were, that is what they have to face in their own time. I don't ever look at it like, I did so much for this person and why wasn't it reciprocated?
Mhm.
When I give with no expectation of anything in return. I give because God has given me the ability to do the things that I want to do for people, you know? And so I let go. And this is one of the things that I think I really um, want to say is a big part of healing. It's letting go of what we expect.
Mhm.
And we have to look at the end result. So even with my business, I'll take it to a business standpoint right now. I
Mhm.
mean, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you want to hit certain numbers, you want to hit certain thresholds, and you want things to come out the way that you plan them to come out. And I used to be really like my to do list would be crazy. I don't know. I could give you an example of like what, just like, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is like a list of things that I want to do for myself in a day sometimes, and it wasn't working out for me. I was like, why I'm writing all this shit down and sometimes I can't even get to like the third point, you know? But I've written this whole book of things that I need to get done. And long story short, I decided to stop like really being attached to the end result and start to think about what it is that's good. What is the end result without me being attached to it, if that makes sense. So just putting in the work, not getting attached to like, oh my God, I don't have 22 units by the end of the month, but I got 5. That's better than 22. You know what I mean? And knowing that everything, the work that I'm putting in every single day is a step forward, whether it's one small little thing that you do, that's perseverance. That is
Yes.
movement. That's you taking control again of your thoughts and your future because you're taking one step forward. One step forward is always a win, even if it's the smallest little thing. Even if you just sent an email for the day and that was it for your business.
So do you
Or
think that
yeah,
helps a lot of people with like, because again, like I said, there's a lot of people out there that they have the trauma from the past or they have the
mhm,
trauma that's going on in their life right now, especially with all this, chaotic COVID stuff going on, right?
mhm,
So a
mhm.
lot of the times, again, people are in their house and they're beating themselves up. They're beating
Yes.
themselves up about losing their job. They're beating themselves up for losing that relationship, beating
Mhm.
about their marriage being rocky in these times, beating there's just so many stuff that people are beating themselves up mentally and emotionally through this whole time of being at home, right? Because
Mhm.
now they're stuck with really looking inward and working on themselves, and a lot of people are just again beating themselves up for different situations that's going on in their life. So what are some advices you can give people out there, because like damn, like you've been through a lot. You know what I'm trying to say? And it sounds like
Yeah.
you're still getting through
I was
certain.
just going to say that. First of all, let's take into consideration that I am not in any way completely healed. I will say that. I want to say that I could have been in a different place right now
Oh,
if
100.
I didn't have control of this and control of this. I personally, like if you look at stories of people that went through some of the things that I went through, they became prostitutes, cokeheads, this, that, blah, 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 whatever it may have been. The path could have been very different for me. But I will say one thing. I looked at my life, like back, I will say that it was like my epiphany came when my grandfather passed away. That was in 2014, 6 years ago. Prior to that, I was drinking. I had no control of my life. I partied every day. I spent my money recklessly. I had absolutely zero, zero, zero control. And I remember when my grandfather passed away, one of the things his ask of me was that he wanted me to take control of my life. Before he passed away, he sat with me and he said, Tricia, I want you to focus on building like a proper career for yourself. I want you to get rid of all these friends and all these bad vibes that are around you. I want you to take control of your money. He had a list of things that he wanted me to do, and I was like, Pops, it's my life. That's what I said to him. It's my life. I could do whatever I want to do. You can't tell me what to do.
Mhm.
You lived your life. I live my life. This is my life.
Mhm.
And when he passed away, he actually did the. He, although we grew up in a Christian home,
Mhm.
his origin, it comes from Hinduism. He's Hindu. So he did the Hindu ceremony, and the priest, the pundit, had asked me to do 30-day cleanse before we did his 30-day work or his work after he passed away. So it challenged me to get rid of the drinking. I couldn't be around my friends because they just wanted to drink all the time. So I had to just literally go in isolation mode and release all of that. It was like going through a detox.
Mhm.
And during that time, I had the epiphany, and I really, Tracy, I looked at my life and I drew a picture of two different roads. And on those roads, I put all of the things that I was going through and all of the things that I foresaw in my future if I continued to go down this road. I
Mhm.
like to put it like the 407 and like 401 West. Like those are the two roads that I'm looking at. The
Yeah.
407, if you pay, you will get a very beautiful, smooth ride. No traffic, no blocks, smooth roads, no bullshit. But if I go on the 401 West to Eglinton side,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? There are cracks in the road, there's bumps, there's people that are like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's a good way to metaphorically put it into perspective for you, but you have two roads and you have to decide. You have to literally decide, what road am I going to go down? Am I going to go down the road that's going to cause me heartache, stress, anxiety, and pain based on my actions and based on my thinking process and the way that I feel and the way that I let things make me feel? Or am I going to go down the road where I have the ability to make the change? And it's the change through thoughts, it's the change through habits, it's the change through what you bring into your life. Like right now on my TV, I have frequencies going on, high energy frequencies. I don't watch TV. TV is noise. I don't watch the news. Bad
Yeah.
energy. You know what I'm saying? What I decide to have on my TV is things that will make me feel in a higher frequency, you know? So
Yeah.
I put that on. And like I said, I pray. Prayer is a choice, you know? You don't I'm not telling everybody to sit here and be this big religious person. Find
Mhm.
something that you believe in bigger than yourself,
Mhm.
you know? And believe that there is something beyond us that really controls the way that we live. I don't want to say control. I want to step away from that word, but it has a huge impact on the way that we are as beings in this 3D world,
Mhm.
you know? And I think the other thing that I want to say is educate yourself. I want to like I'll bring out right now all the things that I didn't know. I didn't finish school. I didn't even finish high school, and I've worked for some of the biggest corporations in the world. That's self-taught. I decided that I wanted to be better than what I literally saw growing up, which was nothing. My parents didn't care about education. They didn't care about seeing my. When did we have the time? When did we have the time when we're moving from this house to that house and my dad's beating the shit out of my mom? When do we have the time to worry about report cards or even school for that matter? But I decided to self-educate, right? Like these are all the books. How to how to speak money, right? I didn't my mom had the worst spending habits in the world. That was something that was genetically passed down to me. That was inherited. That wasn't by choice. The way that I used to frugally spend my money, that was not by choice, that was an inheritance because I didn't know. And what you don't know, you can't do, right? How to speak money. Thinking fast and slow. This is about your mind and how you can, business, the good book, Steve Jobs. I mean, the list goes on. I have like 4 boxes full of books because I wanted to educate myself about the things that I didn't know. Again, what you don't know you can't do, and what you can't see is what you can't see beyond what you don't know, what you know, right? If you only know one way of doing things, I'm telling the world right now, there is so much more to this world than what we see on the surface and what we surround ourselves with. So
100%.
you literally have to really like be like freaking Walt Disney and design your own beautiful life. Design it. Don't let anything, your circumstances or again, what you grew up in, or what you saw, or what you feel you're defined by now, like, don't let that make you feel like that's what you need to be. You're not in any way meant to stick in that situation. You are not. God gave you so much more. You have a mind, you have a body, and you have a soul. Take control of those things, and I think that's really what it's about. Disattaching yourself and taking control.
Oh man, I think like these are so much great tips, you guys. If you guys are going through anything traumatizing right now, especially in this pandemic time, that is really affecting you mentally and emotionally, or you have some past traumas that you've been through life, and you have to heal from, this all these things that we're talking about can help you guys so much to take her story, take her advice and what she's sharing with you in regards to what she's doing to move on, to move forward in her life, even though she had all those traumas, how she's healing from them, and also giving you guys great tips out there and how you could start controlling your mind. And we're doing the inner work to heal, to move on, to move forward, right? And that's all we really want in life, is to be able to heal so we can move on and move forward and allow all the great opportunities and people that we so deserve on this earth while we're still here to come into our life. So videos like this, you guys, is what's going to help you guys to move forward and onward and become that best version of yourself. So Tricia, thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Casey.
much for keeping it 100. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being open enough to share it with us. It means a lot to us, whoever is going to be listening to this.
Thank
Again,
you as well.
I always say that, like, you when you go through what you go through, there's always one life out there that you can change with your story, with your experiences, right? So
Yes.
thank you so much again. I always say in all my videos, you guys, each one teach one, share the love, share the knowledge. There's so much knowledge that you can grasp from hearing her story, from hearing the tips and tools that she's utilizing to move on, to move forward from any past trauma that happened to her, or trauma that happened to her recently. It can help you guys in so many different areas inside of your life. So thanks so much for watching, you guys. Thank you so much, Tricia, for hopping on and sharing all this great tools and knowledge with us. I just really appreciate it much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I truly wish that all of you guys like I said, take control, and let's hashtag inner work. Hashtag inner work, heal through inner work. I wish you guys all the best. Love and blessings.
And I just want to tell you guys too, Tricia has an amazing Instagram page. Please go check her out. Go follow her. Tricia, if you want, you can leave your Instagram page.
Sure. It's at Tricia, Tricia, Maria, BACC. We'll put that in the notes if anything, if you guys wanna follow. I look forward to it.
Awesome, you guys. And you guys know mine already. So it's Toronto_Tracy_Gobin. Go check out our Instagram pages, be in tune with us. We're always putting up motivational stuff to inspire people in different ways, and just networking is key, getting to know different people. If you guys have any questions after watching this video, you guys want to ask us anything, I'm more than welcome to answer any of your questions. I'm pretty sure Tricia is more than welcome.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, and help you guys in any type of way just to move on and move forward, you guys. God bless you guys, and thank you so much for watching, you guys. Take care, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.